There are 5 big money lies that are keeping so many people poor. And I can virtually guarantee that every single one of you watching this video have heard some variation of these money lies before. So what I want to do is I want to start by going over what these money lies are so you understand them. And then number 2, I want to go over what you can actually start doing with your money today with actionable step-by-step things that you can start doing right now that we can actually start building real wealth for yourself regardless of where you are with your money today. So let's start by going over what these money lies are. Number 1 is you need a certain degree in order to become wealthy. Number 2 is that BGBC is the reason why you're poor. That's your boss, the government, big banks, and corporations. That these are the things that are keeping you poor. Number 3 is that you need money to make money. Number 4 is that money is bad or evil or taboo. You can put whatever you want in those quotes right there. And then number 5 is that there's just one path to become wealthy. Starting with this, that you need a certain degree to become wealthy. Many of us grew up hearing this. I did too. I grew up being told that if I wanted to become successful, there was only one way to do that, and that was by becoming a doctor. But if you look at some of the most successful and financially richest people in the world, well, many of them didn't get there by just climbing the corporate ladder. They worked to do something different. They worked to either build a business or they worked to buy assets. That's where wealth is built. Your wealth is built through your financial education, not just your school education. Now, having a bigger income can help, but the real key to becoming wealthy is what do you do with your money, and we're going to be talking about that. Number 2 is that your boss, the government, banks, or corporations are keeping you poor. Look, you can blame other people all day and night long, but at the end of the day, it is up to you to determine what you do with your money. It's up to you to determine how you spend your money. It's up to you to determine how you invest your money, and it's up to you to determine how wealthy you become. You can blame everybody else in the world. You can blame your mom, your dad, your cousin, Uncle Bunty, Cousin Bunty, whatever you want. But until you start taking responsibility for your finances, it does not matter. You can blame everybody else in the world. It's you that's keeping yourself poor there. Number 3 is that you need money to make money. That's a lie. You need money to grow your money. You want to go out and start buying real estate. You want to go out and start investing in stocks. You want to go out and start buying businesses. It takes money to go out and invest your money to grow your money, but you don't need that money to actually make your money. If you want to go out and start earning money, what you need is you need the right work ethic. You need to be willing to take risks. You need to be willing to learn. You need to be willing to put in the work. If you have that, you can go out and make money. And then once you get the money, that's when you can use that money to actually grow your money. It takes money to grow your money. You don't need the money to actually get the money. Number 4 is that money is bad. Look, at the end of the day, money is just a piece of paper. It doesn't have emotions. It's not good, it's not bad. It just amplifies who you are. If you give a good person more money, they have a tool to do more good. You give a bad person more money, they have a tool to do more bad. That's why we need more good people with money. Money is emotionless. It's just pieces of paper. And number 5 is that there's just one path to wealth. You hear this, the same thing with religion all the time. There's only one path to God. Well, let me tell you something about money, okay? Because we're not a religious channel. When it comes to money, there's not one path to wealth. If somebody's coming here and they're telling you, you have to go out and invest in real estate if you want to become wealthy, that is the only path to becoming wealthy, they are selling you something. If somebody tells you, you have to be investing in dividend-paying companies if you want to become wealthy, that is the only path to wealth, is to build a dividend cash flow portfolio. They're selling you something. And this is where I want you to understand, you have some people that have become incredibly wealthy by investing in real estate and never touching a stock. You have some people that have become incredibly wealthy by investing in stocks, never touching real estate. You have some people that have become incredibly wealthy through entrepreneurship who have never touched real estate or stocks. There's not one path to wealth. You got to find the right strategies, the right options for you. And this is why I always say don't just blindly follow a random guy on YouTube. You got to figure out what's right for you because that's what financial education is all about. So now, if these are the 5 lies that keep so many people poor or broke financially, what do you need to actually do? And you can really complicate this, but it comes down to 3 main keys. Key number 1 is you got to work to spend less money. Key number 2 is you got to work to earn more money. And the key number 3 is you take the money that you're not spending and you're going to work to invest like crazy. Now, before we jump into this, I do want to let you know that if you stick with me until the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can get a copy of my team's ebook, How to Build Wealth as an Investor for free. So if you want to get this ebook for free, just stick with me until the end of this video. Now, let's start by going over how do you actually put this in action and how do you start building wealth for yourself. One thing that a lot of people really get confused here is they assume that becoming wealthy has to be really difficult and really complicated and the money management has to be this really intense process, but it really doesn't. It's kind of like building your health. You can get really into the weeds and the nitty-gritty of how do you become healthy. You can look into at what incline do you need to walk on your treadmill? What does your heart rate need need to be, how many hours you need to sleep at night, how do you breathe in the mornings, what do you eat during each hour of the day. I mean, you can get very technical when it comes to your health. But at the end of the day, if you want to become more healthy, just eat less calories and exercise a little bit more. And then you can start working towards that. And as you get more into it, then you can start getting a little bit more technical, a little bit more nitty-gritty. It's the same thing with money. It becomes very overwhelming when you start to enter the world of financial education, because everybody's bombarding you with all these strategies and all these things you need to do. And now it becomes a whole new full-time job of how do you manage your money? How do you spend your money? How do you invest your money? Where do you put your money to work? How should you be earning money? It becomes very overwhelming. But at the end of the day, there's three things you got to remember if you want to become wealthy. It really just comes down to this. You got to spend less, you got to earn more, then you got to invest the difference, invest like crazy. So now, how do you actually put it into action? What are things that you can start doing right now? Well, starting with spending less. You have to understand, why are we working to spend less? Because I think a thing that people get really confused is, I want to earn money to have nice things. I don't want to just cut back on my expenses. And you're right. The goal is to be able to have whatever stuff you want, but the goal is to be able to afford this stuff. And at the very least, what you want to do is you want to create a cash buffer for yourself. If you do not have $2,000 saved up in a savings account, not to go out and buy a TV, not to go out and buy a vacation, but saved up to protect you against an emergency, you are in a financial danger zone. So the very first thing you got to do before you do anything else, go out and save $2,000 ASAP. And that means if you don't got $2,000 saved up, don't go out and eat at restaurants. Don't go out and do anything. Stop buying stuff completely. Don't go to the mall. You need to go out and save $2,000 right now, because you are in a danger zone. Because what happens when you don't have at least $2,000 saved up? This is the very bare minimum. If you don't got $2,000 saved up, well, something's going to happen. Maybe something's going to happen to your car. Maybe something happens to your apartment. Maybe something happens to your home. Maybe something happens to your kid. Maybe something happens to your health. And now you got to pay money to fix that thing. And if you don't got the money to pay for that thing, now you got to go into debt to fix that thing. Now, not only do you have to pay that money back, but you got to pay that money back plus interest. So now you start living in the cycle of your working money just to pay back yesterday's bills or last year's bills. And when you're always working just to pay back yesterday's bills, you'll never have a chance to build tomorrow's future. And so you got to start by saving at least $2,000. Then, once you got the $2,000 saved up, the next thing you got to do is you got to work to pay down your high interest debts. This is things like your credit card debt, as fast as possible. And the reason why is because your credit cards are charging you 15, 18, 21, 25, sometimes 28% a year in interest. Now, the reason why that's so significant is because here, when we talk about investing your money like crazy, when you're going to put your money into the stock market, if you're going to buy rental properties, now you're trying to get something like a 5 to 10% return on your money. Those are your goals as an investor. Those are considered good general returns. But if you're paying 15, 20, 25, 30% in interest to your credit card company, but you're trying to get a 5 to 10% return here, you are losing in this game of money, because you're trying to get a 5 to 10%, but you're paying out 20% or 25%. And that's why when you have this type of credit card debt, it is literally like shackles that is holding you back from ever becoming successful. And that's why a lot of people start blaming people like corporations and banks for keeping them in this situation. But this is where now you got to stop blaming them, and you got to stop playing the same game. And that means you got to stop spending money. You got to stop trying to flex on Instagram. You got to stop buying the things that got you into this situation in the first place. Because let me tell you something. Nobody put a gun to your head to go out and buy that Gucci's belt. Nobody put a gun to your head to go out and drive a Beamer. Nobody put that gun to your head to go out and buy that expensive stuff. And this is where now you're going to have to start letting go of some of these expensive things. And this is difficult because, well, people are going to think you lost your mind. When you start making these tough financial decisions, people look at you like you're the crazy one. What do you mean you don't want to go to the Gucci store? What do you mean you don't want to go to the club? What do you mean you don't want to go to the bachelor party? What do you mean you don't want to go on the vacation? What do you mean that you don't want to go out to eat with me on Thursday night? And these are the tough things that you got to start by making the sacrifices. Now, the goal is not to make sacrifices for the rest of your life. The goal is to start kickstarting the process, because if you don't have this type of basic financial foundation built, you could never build upwards. You have a lot of people that don't have this, that are just like, well, where do I put my money? What stock should I buy? How can I double my money really quickly? And those are the people that end up losing money in the stock market, that keep bleeding money here and wonder why they'll never become wealthy. And they just keep hating their boss, their government, the banks, corporations. They hate the entire system because they don't understand what to do with their money. And this is where now I want you to take a breath and understand the first step is you got to control your own spending. And that means if you have a spending problem, you got to sit down with your spouse if you have one, and you got to figure out how you can solve this. Now, you can watch as many videos as you want about how to do it. At the end of the day, you just got to stop spending money. Okay, if you don't need it to survive, stop spending money on it. If it is a luxury, see if you can sell it or downsize. Downsize your car, downsize your apartment, downsize your home, downsize whatever you can, sell some stuff and stop spending the money. That way you have extra money here. Then, when it comes to earning more money, this one is a little tricky because depending on your personality and your mindset and your attitude towards your work, either this is going to be very difficult or it's going to be not that difficult. For most people, if you're working a job, if you don't like what you do, this is going to be very difficult because that means maybe you have to work harder. Maybe that means you have to get a second job. Maybe that means you have to get a new career change, and it just seems like work. And this is where I think it's important to understand that there are ways to find a career that make you feel fulfilled. And the interesting thing about this is when you do something that makes you feel more fulfilled, you're going to have way more income potential. And I can give a little example of this because I'm an attorney. I'm a licensed attorney. I don't work as an attorney, but I am a licensed attorney. And one of the most difficult periods of my life, and one of the most boring periods of my life, and one of the most periods where I was sleeping more than ever, was when I was studying for the bar exam, when I was studying to become a licensed attorney. I didn't want to be an attorney. I went to law school to make my parents happy because I didn't become a doctor. So I made this compromise that I'll just go and become an attorney. Well, I go to law school. I did good, or I did okay. I passed law school. Actually did pretty decent in law school. But I then had to take the bar exam, which is a very difficult exam. You study for months to take this bar exam. And it was so draining because I knew this wasn't what I wanted to do. I knew that I was not going to practice as a traditional attorney, and I just had to get through this process. And I was spending so much of my time, energy, and just brain effort trying to learn something that just wasn't that important to me at that time. So it was tough. I was sleeping a lot, and it was just tough. But now when I work for Briefs Media, my company, when I do videos for Minority Mindset, I can get up excited. And I can work a lot longer and not feel drained. I don't feel that same burnout that I did when I was studying for the bar exam. And it's because I actually enjoy what I do. The whole purpose of this rant was essentially, if you want to be able to earn more money, many times that it requires you now to, number one, work harder. And then number two, work smarter. You have a lot of people that say, don't work hard, work smart. That's stupid as well. You have to be willing to work hard. Anybody who tells you that you can make 6 figures a year by doing nothing except sitting on the laptop is selling you a program. It's hard work, okay, to earn more money. Now, how do you go out and earn more money? This one, again, is going to depend on you. And if you are an employee, maybe that means a career change. Maybe that means working up in your company. Maybe that means getting a second job. But for those of you who are not that employee-minded, maybe you don't want to be an employee. Maybe you're an employee that wants to get out of that system. Maybe you are an employer. Maybe you are an entrepreneur already. This is where now you got to find something that you can enjoy doing and monetize at the same time. I never really worked a traditional job. I've been fortunate for that. I've always been that entrepreneurial mind. I graduated law school and then I never worked as an attorney because my business was fortunate enough to be able to support me. But for me, the thing that had helped me earn more was working hard in my business. Number two, learning consistently how to grow and scale. And then number three, as we started to make money, to take the money and pour it back into the business. And this one is tough, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because on the internet, you have this thing where when people make money, you've got to show it off. Now, this is for all kinds of people across all incomes. Doesn't matter if you are an employee or an employer or a self-entrepreneur or a solo entrepreneur. Everybody feels this need to show it off. And then the internet, digital entrepreneur space, people feel the need to really just show off the numbers. Oh, first time I made 6 figures. And when I made 6 figures, I bought this car. When I made $500,000 a year, I bought this. When I made $700,000 a year, I did this. When I made $1 million a year, I did this. And I'll tell you that the first time I made $1 million, the first time my tax return showed them a business made $1 million, I walked away with $20,000. That was the money that I took for myself. The other $980,000 went right back into the business. Now, I could have taken out way more. I could have taken a whole lot more, bought a nice car, gone on a whole bunch of expensive vacations, done a bunch of nice fancy things and expensive things. But that's not what I wanted to do because I wanted to build a bigger business. So, if you're working to earn more money, you gotta just understand, you gotta be willing to invest in your income. That's really what ultimately comes down to. If you're an employee, that means investing in how do you earn more money. Maybe that means taking classes on how you can get a better job. Maybe that means getting a career change. Maybe that means getting a certificate. Maybe that means working harder to earn more money. Whatever it might be, you gotta start investing in that income. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Now, I don't have a whole bunch of experience here because I've never really worked as an employee, so I don't want to go deeper into that side. But even as an employer, same concept. If you're working to build your own business, if you're working to build your own income, you got to be willing to invest in your income. Take classes, get coaching, get consulting, go out and keep learning, trying things, risks. I mean, the problem is you will lose money with some of these things, but the goal is to be able to increase that income by learning how you can increase that income. Now, as you spend less and you earn more, the fastest way to increase your wealth is to increase your income faster than you increase your spending, period. The reason why so many Americans are broke is that anytime you get a raise, you also inflate your lifestyle. I mean, if you ask out 100 Americans, what would help you in your financial situation today? All 100 of them would say, oh man, if I just got a $10,000 raise, all of my financial problems would be solved. I'd have more money to invest, more money to save, more money to buy groceries and whatnot. But what we've seen happen statistically, and I'm not just saying this, I'm saying statistically, is that when the vast majority of Americans go out and make more money, they end up in a bigger financial hole. How do we know this? Because when Americans go out and they get more money, they go out and they buy a faster car, they buy a bigger home, or they go on a vacation to celebrate. And then many times now when you make more money, the bank also looks at you and they say, oh, now you make more money, huh? How about another line of credit? How about another credit card? How about a bigger debt line? You qualify for more debt as you make more money as well, which makes it easier for you to go out and spend more money you don't have also. And that's why so many people end up in a bigger financial hole as they start to make more money, which is why as you start to make more money, keep your lifestyle small for a little while. I call it like a 6-month delay. Don't increase your lifestyle at all for 6 months. Just take that extra money and invest it. And then when you get the next pay raise, well, now you start living off of the previous pay raise. That way now you can keep increasing how much money you invest. I mean, that's a simple way that you can just accelerate how much money you invest, is that when you start making more money, do not inflate your lifestyle. That will allow you to increase your wealth much faster. And unfortunately, most people don't do that. So now you start earning more money, you start spending less money, so you have more money to invest. Now what do? You got to invest this money like crazy. I call this a decade of sacrifice. Because many people assume that when you start investing, you're going to be able to reap the rewards of your investments tomorrow or next year. That's not how it works. It's like planting a farm. You can plant the farm right now, but you're not going to get your fruits tomorrow. You might have to wait a year to really start seeing the rewards of what you planted, maybe even a few years, depending on what you're planting. And this is where now you got to understand investing is a long-term game. The people that build the real wealth with investments are not people that are investing for 6 months. Even 6 years, we're talking about for a decade or more. And I call it a decade of sacrifices because it takes time to, number one, start putting this system to work, to spend less and earn more, to then put the money here, but then it also takes time to let your money compound and grow. Now, like what I was saying earlier in this video, there are so many ways to invest, and they can get very, very, very overwhelming because now you have everybody saying, oh, you got to invest in index funds. No, invest in rental properties. No, invest in ETFs. No, invest in real estate syndicate deals. No, invest in these types of ETFs, mutual funds or derivatives or options. Or no, go out and start investing in startup companies. It can get very overwhelming. And now you have all these options. You don't know where to start. But the key is you just got to get started. Stocks, real estate, and businesses have been time-tested to prove and build more wealth than any other asset class. So now, just figure out what are you interested in and where are you willing to start. If you want to start investing in the stock market, it requires the least barrier to entry and the lowest amount of money to start. I mean, you can start investing your money in the stock market as little as $1, $10, $100, it doesn't matter. And the nice thing is there are funds, things like ETFs or index funds. I got other videos on my channel that will go over what those are, that will give you exposure to things like the total stock market. Because what ends up happening next is people will say, oh, what company should I invest in? You start going to Google. what's the next hot stock? What's the next Google? What's the next Amazon? And now when you do that, you're trying to find the next hot company, and now you turn into a trader trying to find the next hot flip, the next hot stock. And that's why so many people end up losing money, is because when you start investing in companies without understanding what the company is or what the fundamentals are, or without actually trying to invest for the long term, well, now you're one of the people that ends up losing when the markets start to go down. And you got to understand, markets don't go straight up. But if you just invest in the stock market and you keep putting more money into the stock market for the course of a decade or a couple decades, well, what we've seen happen through the last century is that the stock market has gone up, despite market crashes, despite recessions, because we've seen a market crash or recession pretty much every decade for the last century. And yet the stock market has still risen, despite every market crash and recession. And so now, if you don't know how to do the research, that's okay. You can just put your money into the stock market. There are funds that give you exposure to the S&P 500. That's the largest 500 companies in the stock market. There are funds that give you exposure to the Dow Jones. There are funds that give you exposure to the NASDAQ. There are funds that give you exposure to technology companies. There are funds that give you exposure to real estate companies. There are funds that give you exposure to international companies. So now, instead of you trying to go out and find the perfect company, you can just invest in an industry. Now, if you want to get more involved, fine. Now you can start understanding, how do you research companies? How do you analyze a company? What is a fundamental analysis? What is a company's moat? What is a company's real internal valuation? What is a company's actual profit? How much has the profit have been growing? How has their revenues been growing? Who is the executive structure? Or what is the executive structure of a company? Now you can start digging a little bit deeper. Now maybe you're interested in that, maybe you are not. But depending on where you are in this investment analysis game, you got to make your decisions accordingly. Just like that with real estate. You got to decide if real estate investing is right for you or not. I like investing in real estate. Maybe you'll hate it. Maybe you'll love it. It takes more money to get started. It takes more work to get started. You got to find the right team. You're going to have to deal with bad property managers. You're going to have to deal with bad contractors. Now you can get great returns. You can get great tax benefits. There's a lot of benefits to investing in real estate, but not everybody should or can be a real estate investor. Just like not how everybody should or can be an entrepreneur. Just like that with businesses. You got to understand, well, if you don't want to start a business, do you want to go out and buy a business? It takes more work, takes more time, but it's not for everybody. And this is where, again, you can go deep into the rabbit hole of all the different investment options, but the key is, we just got to get started. The reason why so many people don't become wealthy isn't because they made the wrong investment. It isn't because they have the wrong expense ratio in their funds. It isn't because they didn't do all the right analysis. It's because they are not investing. The key is you got to just get started. Once you get started, you can start making adjustments, because now you start to understand, oh, okay, maybe I want to invest more into this. Maybe I don't want to invest more into this. Once you have more skin in the game, you naturally become more involved. But the key is you got to start putting your money to work. Now, in the beginning of this video, I promised you that if you stuck with me until the end, I'm going to show you how you can get a copy of this ebook, How to Build Wealth as an Investor, for free. Now, the way you can get a copy of this is I got a link for you down in the description below, where you can go to briefs.co/ebook. And in this ebook, we have tons of information, starting with how do you build a mindset of an investor, to then how do you start investing your money, different ways to invest your money, how do you generate cash flow, to then how do you spend your money smartly, to then how do you earn more money, to then how do you protect your assets, because let me tell you something, they start making more money, people are going to try to take a piece of that for themselves. So there's a ton of value in this ebook. You can read it for free. All you gotta do is click the link down in the description, or go to briefs.co/ebook. And we also have tons of videos on my channel that will go over different investing things that you need to know to help build your financial education as well. If you want to manage your money like the top 1%, there are 5.5 things that you need to do. And if you stick with me until the end of the video, you're gonna know exactly how to do that. I'll show you. Number 1, you have to build a foundation for your finances. I'll explain what that means. Number 2, you have to build an investing system. This is where your wealth is going to be built through your investments. Number